We are back with your latest edition of Is It Legal and Does That Even Matter at All? I'm Alex Aronson, Executive Director of Court Accountability and Court Accountability Action. Thrilled to be here on the Midas Touch Legal AF network with my friend and partner in crime, the Executive Director. Exactly. Nice. That's exactly right.
We should not be giving them any ideas that we commit crimes, Alex.
Yeah. Well, they're just erasing the entire concept of criminality altogether. But the executive director of the stalwart Revolving Door project, Jeff Hauser, a longtime advocate, lawyer, and veteran of these fights. Jeff has just yesterday launched a terrific resource documenting the numerous instances of Trump's executive branch just outright defying court orders. And this has all started to really come to a head, particularly over the weekend when a judge issued a temporary restraining order forbidding Elon Musk and his minions from seizing access to huge swaths of government data. That there's some recent developments in that case where the judge clarified the order. The DOJ seems to be okay with those clarifications. But meanwhile, in all of these cases you're tracking, Jeff, the administration is just steamrolling right through court orders. And, the question everybody's asking is, will the court be able to enforce its orders? Will the Trump administration pay any attention to them at all? And we've started to see some troubling warning signs that they definitely might not. What's this resource, and what's your view on kind of how this is all proceeding as things move so quickly through the courts?
Thanks for having me, Alex. And it's great to have a chance to talk about things that I never would have hoped to have to talk about in my entire life. But we at Revolving Door Project, we focus generally on corporate influence in politics with a particular influence on corporate influence in the executive branch. And obviously there's never been greater corporate influence in the executive branch than having the world's richest man who maintains his ownership stake in a wide variety of corporations, basically serving as president of the United States. We kind of have King Trump and President or Prime Minister Musk. And so one of the things we have started tracking is what happens when a man, Elon Musk, who is not known for rapid compliance with judicial orders or the laws and regulations of the government in his private business activities, what happens when he takes over the executive branch? And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of what we're calling judicial non-adherence, or just like not listening. I mean, it's kind of like what you encounter as a parent, but you would not hope to see occur amongst ostensible adults. So we are tracking on our website at the revolvingdoorproject.org times when DOJ and the executive branch are not fulfilling court orders. There's a really dumb conversation that you see constantly across social media about this phenomenon. People cite Andrew Jackson, a president almost 200 years ago, saying, it's fine that Chief Justice Marshall has his orders, but does he have any divisions? How is he going to make us listen to this? But the reality is, for better and for worse, the courts have had the last word in America for more than a couple hundred years. It goes back to Marbury versus Madison, which is not just a case you learn about in law school. It's, if my recollection is correct, a case you start learning about in high school, where the courts in this country have final say. They have judicial review. And this has not really been meaningfully challenged. I mean, southern states tried a little bit with non-adherence to Brown v. Board of Education and judicial desegregation, and the executive branch was a little slow to provide the force it should, and civil rights movement made them do it. But eventually the courts were listened to, and that was by the states. There's really no history of the executive branch thinking that they can get away with it. They've complained plenty in the past, but they've always acknowledged the authority of the judges. I think what's going on right now is that this is about intimidation. I think Trump, JD Vance, Elon Musk are trying to intimidate the judiciary, suggest that they will not comply, and so that you should not push us. You should not rule against us, because if you were to rule against us, we might not comply, and that would make you look weak. obviously you'd be quite weak if you fail to rule the right way just to make sure that nobody calls your power into question. But I think that's the state of play is the administration's trying to intimidate the courts, and we'll see if they get away with it.
Yeah, and of course, the courts and the Supreme Court, where a lot of these big questions are going to end up, finds itself in this really delicate posture, right? Where they agree with a lot of what Trump and his administration are trying to do. There's going to be stuff that they almost certainly go for. For example, the firing, the illegal, plainly illegal firing of the member of the NLRB board. Who is, challenging, affirmatively challenging that firing as a, violation of the restrictions on their position. And that is part and parcel of a, long-term effort to cement this broader unitary executive power that these justices have been very much a part of. And we've seen an advance toward the erosion of Congress's power to protect independent agency heads in cases like Saylor Law just a few years ago. So there's some of the stuff they're going to want to go for, and then some of it they'll think is, perhaps a bridge too far, and also an opportunity to burnish their own credibility as a legitimate, court, with, really far-reaching, overzealous, overreaching interpretations of like the 14th Amendment, like they're offering with birthright citizenship, or with these inherent impoundment powers that somebody like Russell Vogt has claimed for Donald Trump. And it's you almost feel sorry for them, except that we're all facing the brunt of it, and at the same time they very much helped create this monster that is now poised to potentially eat their faces, with most notably the Trump versus United States decision, which not only gave President Trump immunity from criminal prosecution, but read to its maximalist degree, gives him, effective, conclusive, and preclusive authority over controlling the entire executive branch, and without Congress being able to step in to stop him, without the courts being able to step in to stop him, and as even some Federalist Society stalwarts have started to raise the alarm bells around, like Jack Goldsmith, who in a piece with longtime Democratic senior, fancy lawyer Bob Bauer, who was a White House counsel to a number of presidents. They say, they don't normally like to sound histrionic, but based on the way these guys are talking, the way that people like Russ Vogt see their power as unconstrained, and as the vision for the Constitution as kind of a radical post-constitutional vision, we can't rest assured that the courts will in any way be a meaningful check ultimately if they don't, cower to those threats that I agree underlie these messages from the administration.
Yeah, I agree that you can easily categorize the threats to the law by Trump within two categories. One's where the ideological work has been done by the far right. That doesn't mean they have legal precedent on their side. That doesn't mean they have the text of the Constitution, the history of the Constitution on their side. But at least they've been complaining about independent agencies for close to a century. So even if their arguments are kind of inane and are not, do not carry Supreme Court precedent, they've not had majorities in the past, it feels less crazy to act in anticipation of an assumption that the Roberts Court, which has overruled many longstanding precedents, most famously Roe v. Wade, but many, many others as well, that they might win on those. And so I think Trump is going to have a higher batting average than the legality of his actions indicate. But undermining the authority of Congress to control the power of the purse, that's a biggie, and they've not actually done that work. And there's a lot of Supreme Court precedent concerning the importance of that, including there was a Reagan-era initiative, the line item veto, which basically said that the president should be, Congress said that the president should be able to cut spending when the president wanted to do so. And the Supreme Court said Congress can't even give the president that authority. So obviously the president asserting that authority on their own against the stated wishes of the bipartisan consensus that produced the appropriations. Like, for instance, like today, we're finding out that FEMA, which helps people who are the victims of emergencies, FEMA money is not getting out despite court orders. Like, their popular money is not getting to recipients because of lawlessness. So, yeah, I think courts, even right-wing courts, are going to want to rule against Trump. But that's why they're being leaned on. That's why the non-adherence is a tactic of Musk and Trump and Vance, because they want to win on matters that are not just lawless, but like indefensibly lawless. Like, there's just no possible justification for failing to make these expenditures. So it's a mess.
Yeah, and it's not like they made this a secret, right? Russ Vought, in his two confirmation hearings, when pressed on these questions, made perfectly clear that they believed that the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, which was passed along broad bipartisan lines in response to a similar invocation of a inherent impoundment authority by Nixon, they think that's unconstitutional. And what's clear, and what I also think that your resource helps really elucidate, as it documents all these categories under which the administration is ignoring these court orders to unlock these funds. And it's, climate funding, foreign aid, electric vehicle programs, Head Start, nonprofits, farmers, government employees, health research. They're not. It's not just that they're, not agreeing to expend appropriated funds. They're not even honoring obligated contracts, and they're trying to claw back money that has been sent out. That Congress approved. What Vought made clear, and what I think this defiance or non-adherence to these judicial orders make clear, is they have no intent to follow the procedures of something like the Impoundment Control Act, which would actually alert Congress, put some obligation on Congress to vote on whether it agrees with these types of impoundment. We won't even know the full scope and scale of this impact, which, as you point out, will hurt red and blue communities alike. Probably will be targeted more to blue states, but it's going to have real impact on Republican districts and states. And I think all of this is very much by design to as people freak out about the illegality, as they go through the motions of saying, oh, we're complying, even as they're not, to take accountability, political accountability, off the elected majorities that they have in Congress, who are ultimately responsible for this. And where we have people like Tom Cole, the head of appropriations in House, not even knowing that appropriations are laws. He says it's like the law, an appropriations bill, and where he is justifying what Musk is doing by likening it to a CEO at a business who is tightening the belt, and who would complain about that? Well, it's going to come hard and fast at these communities, and it's essential that folks living in these places make their voices heard to drown out and make clear that the fringe elements, these MAGA Project 2025 fringe elements who are, threatening the political careers, but I think much more sinister threats of intimidation and violence that underlie the message that they're sending, that those not carry the day, so that, we can continue to have a country.
Yeah, we're working on a blog piece for tomorrow that talks about what is and is not Trump's mandate from the election. It's important to remember that Donald Trump expressly and repeatedly disavowed Project 2025. He's like, I never read it. I don't know those people. There's a Politico article from October of 2024 in which the transition said that we will blacklist anyone who worked with Project 2025. They will not get a job in our administration. This was an effort, the transition led by Don Jr. So kind of hard to distance from the Trump family, Don Jr. They were disavowing Project 2025. Russ Vought, the Office of Management and Budget Director, and also in his spare time, the head of the CFPB, when he is going before Congress and talking about, we're going to impound your money, not only does he not have electoral legitimacy, this is the exact opposite of what Trump promised voters. Trump promised to not follow the Project 2025 blueprint. So while I feel like Democrats have been feckless and not really found their full throat on these issues, it's important to realize like it's bad enough, and I think Democrats should speak up when Republicans have abhorrent views that are popular, when they are doing things that they hid from, or that they lied and said are the opposite of what they would do in the election. You should have a particularly strong spine in response to such action. So it's just really important to remember they did not run on these ideas. They ran away from them. This has no popular support. It has no legal support. The final thing is just the Impoundment Act of 1974 was to clarify what had been broadly understood to be constitutional law for nearly 200 years. Nixon had already lost in the courts when he tried to impound, that is, not spend money that had been appropriated by Congress. The Impoundment Act of 1974 actually gives there to be a mechanism that if the president thinks some money shouldn't be spent, there's a way to get Congress to accede to that revision after the fact. But it actually gave the president more power. So it's crazy the extent to which people like Russ Vought call that law unconstitutional. That was a method of expanding the president's power beyond where the Constitution grants it. So there's just no constitutional basis for the idea that what Vought and Musk and Trump are doing is legal. It's just plainly illegal.
Yeah. And this is just so core, right? In terms of, democracy itself, the power of the purse. It is the core vital function of Congress, the most directly representative branch of our federal government. It's the people's money being authorized and appropriated by the people's representatives. And if Republicans in Congress won't have the spine to stand up for their institutional prerogatives, let's make sure that they are forced to have the spine to stand up for their constituents. And I think likewise with Democrats, who finally around some of these issues around this federal funding freeze have shown some more life. But they're headed towards some real political fights where they have real leverage, as the Republicans need to come up with a way to have a budget resolution and fund this government. And if these are the conditions on the ground, and if these are the signals that the administration is giving about how it will or won't honor federal appropriations from the Congress, what incentives do Democrats have to play ball at all? Like, why should they agree to fund this government? I think they need to get really strong on that and unified. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on them from other stakeholders and interests that don't want to see that happen and are going to be trying to force them to capitulate. So an audience like the one we have here at Midas Touch Legal AF has a real voice here. Call your members of Congress, make clear that they should not be agreeing to unanimous consent resolutions, should not be voting for nominees, should not be agreeing to fund the government until this is clearly resolved and we have some sense that Musk is gone and out of this government once and for all after 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the extent to which a budget should be seen kind of as a contract, it is like this is an agreement. And if you're providing votes, and if the president is suggesting that in this case he has the authority, or his henchman Elon Musk has the authority to choose to not spend the money, that means it's not a legitimate contract. Like, you're not getting anything. You can't vote for and make the budget better if the budget as written is not going to be the budget and then following appropriations that are actually implemented by the executive branch. The executive branch is only supposed to execute upon the laws that are passed by Congress. And if the president isn't doing it, there's no reason to vote for it. The only thing that Democratic votes for a budget or for lifting the debt ceiling do is minimize the facial degree of crisis that we're in such a way that might stop Wall Street from holding Trump to account. Basically, we need to rip the Band-Aid off. If we are a lawless country, it should be plain and clear, and then all the forces of civil society, including potentially the business interests, should weigh in aggressively to rein in Trump. But I think papering over this and trying to live to fight another day when the next set of congressional elections is not until November of 2026, the next Congress wouldn't be sat until January of 2027. I don't think we can wait that long. And
Yeah.
so we need to hasten as many forces as possible to recognize the depths of the crisis that we're in.
So well said, Jeff. I always learn so much from you. Thank you for joining us here on Midas Touch Legal AF with Court Accountability Action. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll keep digging in. Make sure you check out Jeff's resource, Revolving Door Project's resource. We'll put it in the show notes. You're going to keep that updated so we can keep track of Trump administration non-adherence to judicial orders and this evolving but very much present constitutional crisis that we're living through. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touches Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.